Millionaire Cowboy stops for a freezing nurse at the train station. He never expected what came next. The wind came with teeth and a rattle like dry bones in a tin. Out on the cracked platform of Dry Creek Station, the hanging sign moaned on its rope, creak, creak, as if the little depot had a throat and wanted to speak a warning. Lantern light shook on warped boards. Steam leaked from the idling engine like a wounded beast. She stood there shivering, late 20s, cheeks wind-burnt raw, a grey wool coat too thin for the hour, and a nurse's satchel hugged close to her ribs. Her name was Nora Bell, trained in a field hospital, and sent west to keep men alive who had long ago given up on living. Tonight the cold bit through her gloves and into her bones. Her breath made ghosts. The station master had bolted his door. She'd watched him do it. He'd peeked through the glass and pretended not to see her. That was fear of the men who were coming. Boots crunched on frost behind her. A gloved hand covered her mouth. Another pinned her arms. "Evening, Miss Bell," her voice purred. Syrup poured over barbed wire. "Doc Vane says you've borrowed something of his." They spun her to face him. Silas Vane, a physician by training, a vulture by trade. The man who ran the mine clinic up in Canyons Red. Tall, neat beard, spectacles that caught lantern fire, eyes like wet coal. He'd discovered a vein of profit thicker than copper. Sell the good medicine up north for cash, dose injured miners with cut laudanum, and bury the complaints under winter. Nora had discovered his ledger, every theft and death inked in neat columns. She'd sewn the pages into the lining of her coat, because the truth needed more than a pocket in this country. Vane's two enforcers, one with a cloth patch over his left eye, the other chewing a toothpick like it was a job, tightened their grip. "No more trains tonight," Vane said. "No more stories." A whistle screamed far down the track, another engine, unexpected, charging the dark like a comet. Nora tried to twist free and caught the swinging depot lamp. Beyond the drifting steam, a rider was dismounting. He was broad-shouldered, fur-collared coat, hat shadowing a face carved by wind and time. He walked with the surety of a man who paid for his world in cash and blood. His spurs chimed and the board spoke under him, boots crunching, rope creaking. The wind paused to listen. Who was he? And what would he do with a woman everyone else had already decided should be forgotten? Before the war, Silas Vane had stitched soldiers and prayed over them. The war had shown him something cleaner than mercy: margins. Out here the sick were numerous, the law thin and ledgers obedient. He'd write a life in blue-black ink, then cross it out with a flourish and sell the morphine twice. He turned Nora's face toward the light with two fingers, clinical, proprietary. "You stole from me," he said. "But it's not the paper I want." "It's the example. Nurses are meant to follow instructions." The patched man, Rig, tightened his hold. The toothpick chewer, Darrow, relieved Nora of her satchel and dumped it on the planks. Out tumbled her wraps, a tin of sutures, a Bible, and a note with a child's shaky drawing. A stick-figure woman with red hair, hers when dry, copper-shot under sun, holding hands with a little boy at the mine camps. "You remember Eli," she said, her voice hoarse. "He cries when the wind gets loud. You kept him 3 nights in your clinic and told his mother to go home." Vane's look didn't change. "I told her the bed was needed for paying injuries." Steam blew across the platform and froze in glitter on the rails. The station sign groaned. A cattle rope hung from the freight post, and it creaked like an old memory of gallows. Vane pinched the lining of her coat and felt the stiff shapes sewn there. "We can do this gentle," he murmured. "You'll hand me what doesn't belong to you, you'll ride back, and I'll tell the miners the angel of mercy went looking for better weather." "Or?" Nora asked. The question snapped from chapped lips, the last of a day's defiance. He smiled. "Or we put you in a freight car until morning. Cold teaches lessons ink cannot." Darrow tossed the satchel toward the track. It skittered and fell, leather slapping iron. Rig forced Nora to her knees. The boards burned cold through her skirt. The lamp's glow carved her from the dark. Freckles across a nose long familiar to sun, a mouth bitten pale with fear, eyes green and unwavering, that had watched too many men die slow and had promised, somewhere deep, not to add herself to the pile. In the distance, the new engine's headlamp grew. The rider's boots thudded closer. Vane turned, annoyed at interruption. "Can I help you?" he called into the steam. The stranger stepped fully into the light, Mid-40s, Ash Hollis, a cattle baron whose money ran as wide as the prairie, whose knuckles remembered every mile. Steel stubble jaw, a silver seam of scar down his left cheek like a slash of moon, grey streaks at the temple, coat of buffalo hide, hat brim spit with frost. 2 gloved hands rested easy, too easy, near a worn holster with a black and silver colt. "Looks like you're already helping yourself," Ash said, voice steady as a fence post. "Stand the lady up." Vane's smile soured. "This is private business." Ash looked at Nora only once. She saw the assessment flicker. A nurse freezing, not yet broken. The kind of person his late wife had been. The rope creaked as if the station breathed again. Ash put one boot forward. Gate crunched on ice. "Funny thing," he said. "You're doing it in the people's cold." Ash Hollis did not relish being the law. He had money enough to sleep behind thick doors and men enough to fetch his horses. He'd promised himself, after burying a woman who stitched strangers in a canvas tent and came home smelling of carbolic and smoke, that he'd never marry the road's trouble again. But some oaths die quietly when a certain kind of cry cuts the winter. He took his hat off to Nora for a breath, the old habit of a gentleman, and set it back. "Miss," he said softly, "you all right to stand?" "I can," she said, though Riggs' fist had her kneecapped on the boards. Ash's eyes returned to Vane and his hired weather. "I'll ask once more. Stand the lady up." Riggs snorted. "You don't give orders here." "Son," Ash said, and the word was both kindness and warning, "you don't know the map." Darrow's toothpick stilled. Vane splayed his hands. Surgeon's grace turned to mockery. "Mr. Hollis, is it? Your cattle buy tickets here, do they?" His gaze flickered to Ash's coat, fine stitching, silver concho at the collar, and his smile returned. "You have capital. I have law. I am the attending physician for Canyon's Red, and the county commissioner's friend. The nurse violated chain of custody. I'll be returning company property." "Not company," Nora rasped. "Graves, those ledgers are graves." Ash glanced at the freight post. The rope, stiff with ice, whispered as the wind swung it. Somewhere in the yard a bridle creaked, the sound of leather arguing with horse. The new train rolled in, throwing cinders. Its headlamp poured a circle across the platform, the light cutting Vane's face into knife and shadow. "Tell you what," Ash said. "We'll let the depot telegraph decide. We'll wake the deputy. We'll make a record in daylight." Vane nodded to Rig. The man yanked Nora up by the elbow so viciously her breath burst from her. "We'll make a record," Rig said, grinning, "in the freight car." Ash's hand moved an inch toward his Colt, a small move, but the kind that rearranged the night. Darrow's coat swung. Steel flashed. "Easy," Ash said. "You draw quick, you die quick. You draw slow, you die slower." Vane lifted his chin. "You won't shoot through a woman." Ash's eyes stayed narrow, not cruel, just exact. "No," he said, "but I'll shoot the rope." They all glanced at the freight post without meaning to. In that blink, Ash moved. The Colt cleared leather like it had always lived there. One shot cracked the frost. The lamp shattered overhead, plunging them into a storm of sparks and shadow. Nora wrenched free. Darrow's pistol barked. The bullet scored a groove in the post, sent the rope swinging wild, creak, creak, creak. Ash stepped into the dark, already mapping feet by sound, boots crunching, breath. The panic song of men surprised. "Run," he told Nora, and the word felt like a hand. She ran toward the rolling cars and the thin hope of steel. Steam swallowed the night, a hot fog gnawed by winter. Nora sprinted along the platform edge, the boards drumming under her soles, the train's wheels chattering like teeth. She leapt the narrow gap and stumbled into an open baggage car, crashing shoulder first into stacked crates. The rope there creaked under the lashings with each lurch. Her lungs burned. Fingers numb, she clawed at the coat lining. The ledger was stitched hard against her, her proof, her anchor. Behind her, the depot erupted. Gunfire, men cursing, boots hammering frost. Ash's voice cut the noise, low-controlled, followed by 3 measured shots. A man screamed. Another fell. The thud, then the slow roll of a body on uneven planks. Nora shoved crates aside and dragged the sliding door nearly shut, leaving a hand's width of night. Through it, she saw Ash backing toward the car, firing left-handed, his silhouette framed by the frenzied swing of the broken lamp's glow. A bullet took his hat brim. He didn't duck. He stepped in fast and his right fist broke Riggs' nose with a sound like a snapped twig in winter. "Train's moving," Nora shouted. Ash holstered, grabbed the door's iron handle, and heaved himself up just as the wheels bit, just as the cars jolted into a slow, inexorable crawl. He landed hard inside, boots scraping, breath clouding. Nora seized his sleeve and yanked. Something like a laugh broke from him, a short, incredulous bark that remembered being 20. The car lurched, dragging them forward. Outside, Vane and Darrow pounded alongside, desperate, then lost purchase. Darrow made a jump for the rail and missed. His thigh smashed the edge and he spun into the cinders with a curse that sounded like prayer. Vane didn't jump. He raised his pistol and fired into the car. Splinters sang. Nora flattened behind a crate. Ash went low, moved like water on rock and put one round through the gap. Vane's hat snapped back and he reeled into the lamp stump. The rope over the freight post swung and struck him across the face, a foolish little injustice that made Nora's heart leap. "Breathe," Ash said to her, calm, almost fatherly. "In through your teeth. Out through your nose." He leaned his shoulder to the door and slid it shut. The iron bit home with a groan. Darkness sang. The baggage car smelled of hay and grease and something sweet. Apples spilled from a split crate, rolling in the straw like little suns. They weren't alone. A shape uncoiled from the far corner. A boy of maybe 9, hair matted, coat too big. He held a knife and his elbow shook. "You ain't thieves," he said, trying to make the sentence a blade. "Thieves don't sound like church." "I'm Nora," she managed. "Nurse, what's your name?" "Eli," he said, and something inside her buckled. The drawing in her satchel had a name after all. "Stay low, Eli," Ash said. "And keep that knife pointed away from your body." The train gathered speed. Outside, a horse screamed, Vane's perhaps, afraid of iron. Ash checked the door latch and then the other side. Both were crude and firm. His breath fogged. "He'll try again," he said. "Either here or down the line." "How far to White Silo?" Nora asked. "There's a deputy there who isn't for sale." "Far enough," Ash said. Far enough for him to plan something ugly. The car dimmed and brightened as they passed through cuts of snow and open field. The rope binding the freight ropes moaned with each sway. Somewhere toward the front, a whistle keened and then hiccuped, like a hand had grabbed it and warned it to hush. The train slowed. "Why are we slowing?" Eli whispered. Ash stood, listened. Boots on the roof, planking complaining. A wait. 3 men, maybe 4. Vane had friends on the crew. He drew, checked the cylinder, breathed. The rope creaked again and the creak sounded like a count. 1, 2, 3. He met Nora's eyes in the dark. "I'll hold the door," he said. "If they get it open, go underside. The brake rig will cut your coat, but it won't cut your throat. Crawl to the next car. Don't stop." "And you?" Nora said. Ash smiled with no joy in it. "I'm paid up." The latch jumped. A crowbar screamed against iron. Steam rolled under the gap like fog under a door. Their voice veins came clean through. "Give me the ledger, Miss Bell, and I'll let the millionaire keep his blood." Nora's hands went to the stitches. She hesitated. Then the crowbar bit. The door shuddered and moonlight knifed in. The latch surrendered like a bone. The door yawed 6 inches, then a foot, ice grinding in the track. Vane's silhouette filled the gap. Hat gone, hair slick with sweat and frost, spectacles crooked. 2 more shadows flanked him, shapes of men who'd learned courage by holding on to someone else's coat. "Ledger," Vane said, breath fogging the space between them, "or I take it off your corpse." Ash didn't answer with words. He answered with geometry. He slid left into the blind wedge behind the door and jammed his shoulder under the crowbar as it pried. Steel bit flesh, but leverage obeyed him. The door froze half open. The nearest thug jammed an arm through. Ash's hand found a wrist and the world turned into tendons. He wrenched. Something popped. The arm vanished with a scream and a peppering of curses that would have embarrassed a mule. Vane shoved the crowbar harder. The door lurched wider. Behind him, the roof man, Darrow, limping, angry, leaned down with a stick of dynamite and a match's flicker cupped in his hand. "No," Nora said, soft and absolute. Her fingers tore her coat lining. Stitches gave, threads snapping like tiny bones. She ripped the ledger pages free and flung them, not out the door but up and back. Paper caught air, filled the car like a flock of pale birds. Vane cursed, startled. In that blink, Ash shoved the door outward with all his weight. It caught Vane square. The doctor went down between car and platform, boots scrabbling on ice right where the iron stairs ate space. Ash lunged, grabbed the crowbar, and swung. Not to cave a skull, that was a younger man's choice, but to bite the pin holding the door's lower guide. It snapped. The door slid free on its top runner and slammed shut, shearing Vane's hat brim from his head, as he tumbled backward into the cinders, hands crossing his face against sparks. Darrow's match flared out. He reached for another. "Down!" Ash barked. Nora yanked Eli under the grain top. Ash fired once, then again. The first bullet kissed the stick and knocked it clean. The second struck the roofman's hand. The fuse tumbled harmless. The man screamed. The dynamite rolled, then bounced out into the night like danger losing interest. The train blared, angry and alive. Someone in the engine, bribed by Vane or just frightened, had tried to slow for the ambush. But now, with gunfire cracking and a man howling on the roof, the engineer thought better. The throttle opened. The baggage car lurched forward like a heart remembering its work. Nora crawled to the scattered pages, blood speckled where her fingers had torn stitch, and gathered them to her chest. "We need the deputy," she said. "We need a judge who still sleeps at night." "You'll have both," Ash said. They rode the rattling dark to White Silo, under a sky that had exhausted its stars. At the depot there, lawmen in wool coats and honest eyes waited, warned by Ash's rider who'd peeled off the moment trouble peered over the platform. Vane stumbled in later, one arm bound to his body, spectacles gone, surrounded by the two men who could still stand. He started to speak in the old tone, authority extracted by habit. He ended by staring at his own handwriting, laid out on the deputy's desk. Dates, names, doses cut and resold, miners dead as commas. They locked him in the little stone cell by the river, where rope creak came from ships instead of gallows, and boots crunched on honest frost in the morning when the judge walked to work. He would hang later for the murder that Ledger drew between lines. The territory liked its reckoning simple. When the sun finally lifted over White Silo, Nora stood on the stoop with a blanket around her shoulders. Her hair, dry now, glowed red like a coal with air. Eli clung to her side, knife nowhere, a boy again, his eyes no longer counting exits. Ash leaned on the hitch rail, hat back, the silver seam on his cheek gilded by day. He looked older by an hour and younger by 10 years. "You could have let it be," Nora said. "You could have walked past." "I tried that for a year," Ash said. "Didn't love the man I met." The rope at the deputy's porch creaked in a kind wind. Somewhere a blacksmith tapped a rhythm that sounded like the world being put back together. Steam from a cookhouse curled up and smelled like bread. "What comes next?" Nora asked, voice small from too many nights survived. Ash gazed past her to the line of low hills and the road braided through them. "You go back to those camps," he said, "with law at your shoulder, with supplies that aren't poison, with a boy who'll carry the water bucket like it's a flag. And when men try again to buy your silence, you send for me." Nora looked at his hands, scarred, steady, and at the dust of frost still on his boots. "You're not the law." "No," he said. "Just a man who can hear a rope creak and tell which way the wind is blowing." She smiled then a little, and it changed her face from brave to human. "Thank you," she said. He tipped his hat. "Don't thank me yet. I've a feeling the doctor has friends, and they're not much for sleep either. Out here, wealth can buy fences, but only courage keeps the gates. A ledger can count the dead. A nurse can number the living. And sometimes the richest man is the one who decides to stop, to take the cold night into his coat, to share breath with a stranger who refused to let the truth freeze. Question for you. If you were in Nora Bell's place, alone on that platform with the wind and the rope creaking, would you have run, bargained, or fought? If this story hit you like bootsteps in quiet snow, like this video and subscribe for the next Wild West tale. And if you want to see how the next battle unfolds, don't miss the next story. Subscribe now.